Back when the real world and digital life were separate, getting on the World Wide Web was a sacrifice and a very intentional decision. It was like stepping into a different world. There were no standards for what a website should look like, so web developers could be as creative as they want in the medium. Exploring the internet at this time felt a lot more like an adventure and can be hard to conceptualize in today's social media-based world. Instead of every topic you could imagine having a subreddit or Facebook page, anything a web developer found interesting enough to build a site for would have its own dedicated website. Want to know more information about optical communications? Modulatedlight.org. Want to know more about places in the state of Virginia? virginiaplaces.org. Want to visit whatever this is? The internet at this time was a conversation between a web developer and the viewer. A lot more like a library rather than the interactive and interconnected internet we all know and love today. This era is retroactively called Web 1.0 or the read-only web. Today, a lot of these sites still exist in a state of decay, old, abandoned, and unmaintained. These sites that remain exist as digital liminal spaces. In this video, we're going to go back and explore 5 fascinating Web 1.0 sites that you can still visit right now. Stick around because the last one is definitely worth checking out. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content.
LeBron James.
No, not that Space Jam. Yes, that's better. Let's start with one of the most iconic Web 1.0 sites, SpaceJam.com. This site is for the original 1996 movie Space Jam, starring Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan. The website is so old now that it could legally drink alcohol, vote, or take out a mortgage. This site has incredible workmanship to it. The main page is a giant HTML table. If you have any experience in web development, you know how painstaking this must have been to build from scratch. If we had a red border to everything in the CSS on the page, you could just see how complex the layout of this website really is. Diving a little deeper into the code, you can also see some cute Easter eggs the web developers left behind. This nostalgic site is a reminder of how early websites felt more like a work of art compared to the flat and monotone modern internet. But if this design is too much for you, a more traditional sitemap exists too. Diving into Jam Central, we can view detailed information about the production of the movie, personal information about the filmmakers, and a gallery of photos from the film. You can even download the original trailer in its 7.5 megabyte glory. I really like the side navigation bar where we could jump to the next planet and continue to explore the site, or go back to the main page. Each planet appears to fork off into 3 to 4 additional pages of content. Here in Behind the Jam, there's tons of information about how they combine cartoons with live action, character development information, and you can again download behind the scenes movie clips. And best of all, we can look at the animation sketches. This planet is rich with information about the NBA. There are player bios complete with stats from the 95-96 season. There's a game that appears all but broken as I can't seem to get it to work on my modern Firefox browser. But perhaps most interestingly, there appears to be a primitive version of VR videos where you can view Michael Jordan's personal practice facility. Unfortunately, it appears that these videos will still not work on modern browsers, and if that's not enough for you, there's plenty of external links on the site to further indulge your interest. This planet is just a link to the modern store site for Warner Bros. This planet is geared towards kids on the site. Games are present but do not appear to be working order. A page with links to biographies of the Looney Tunes characters comedically states that Looney Tunes have been around since before you were born, a statement that is most likely still true to this day for most viewers. There's another page with some photos from the movie and pictures meant to be printed out and used as coloring pages, as well as a page with basketball tips. And allegedly, if you read these tips, you'll be able to play as well as Michael Jordan. If you try that and it works, let me know down in the comments below. The lineup contains information about the cast, real-life players, Looney Tunes characters, and all about the bad guys. A lot of this information is rehashed from previous planets, however. Lunar Tunes is all about the music from the movie. Interestingly, there's a list of radio stations that are playing the first single from the soundtrack, so when you're quote-unquote offline, you can listen to it. You could even purchase a CD or cassette of the movie soundtrack and receive a limited edition poster. The music sample links all appear to be dead, unfortunately. The final planet, Stellar Souvenirs, is full of digital souvenirs that you can download to your PC. Screensavers, jam posters, backboard patterns, postcards, sound clips you can still download, and even browser icons intended to replace the Netscape logo. Even though it is clearly dated, the site is extremely charming and rich with content around and about the movie. Tons of promotional websites like this one existed for various releases in the 90s, but many of them have been shut down and deleted without a trace. Interestingly, there is a modern version of the old site for the 2021 release of the sequel, but of course this time it comes with a social media planet. This relic of a bygone era remains available to anyone with an internet connection. Quick content warning, this part gets pretty dark, so jump ahead to the time on screen if you'd like to skip this section of the video. This website, created by the Heaven's Gate cult, is frozen in time in the year 1997. Heaven's Gate was a religious cult founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles in the 1970s. They believed that the earth was going to be recycled, and the only way to survive, according to Applewhite, was by ascending to a higher level of existence aboard a UFO. In 1997, the group of 39 individuals thought that their window was closing, as they believed a UFO was following closely behind the Halley-Bopp comet. In order to ascend, every member of the group committed mass suicide via drug overdose and awaited their ascension in the same Nike shoes underneath a purple blanket. There are tons of more interesting details about this bizarre tragedy, and I highly recommend checking it out if you want to learn more. Despite being formed in the 70s, the latter years of this cult derived a large portion of their income from designing web pages, similar to this one, which unfortunately have likely been lost to time. Going down the list of what the website considers vital information, we start off with an excerpt from their book, aptly titled Heaven's Gate. Applewhite's cult alias, Doe, warns that to get to the gates of heaven, followers must closely follow him and to ignore the external negative forces, referred to as Luciferians. A few more links to excerpts from the book outline what souls are, the present mission, and the last chance to advance beyond humanity. One section I found rather interesting was bullet point 14 in the 95 statement by an extraterrestrial presently incarnate. It simply states that humans seem to fall into three categories: those without souls, effectively being human plants, those with souls who are receiving nourishment from cult, and those with souls who are not in a relationship with the cult. If you're familiar with the Bank of Souls theory, this is strangely similar. There is then a link to the book in its entirety and a couple transcripts from their videos, curiously including a German translation. In the highest form of irony, the cult has an entire page about their hard stance against a link to a photo of how a member of the Kingdom of Heaven might appear. Most morbidly, however, are the Earth exit statements by students, and a press release that was only to be revealed after the cult commits mass ascension. The exit statements are some of the last words ever said by these individuals as they were brainwashed into prematurely ending their lives. I have been so lucky to have had T and Doe as my teachers and older members, and I thank the Next Level many times for sending them to help me. They have been so patient and caring. They have shown me through their high standards of what an orderly and wonderful place the Next Level will be to be a part of. The most exciting thing is that the wait is almost over. Interestingly, if you email the address given on the site, you will actually receive a response. An original member of the Heaven's Gate cult stayed behind and actively maintains the site to this day, and the responses are generally concise and point towards their official videotapes online. You can still send mail to the cult with the address on the site, and apparently can receive back physical tapes of their videos. The site still being active with the purpose of putting their word out there and recruiting members is ironic. The cult died. When they died, their religion died with them, leaving behind this website as a grim reminder of what happened to Heaven's Gate. Is it just me, or are most websites from this era in dark mode? This is a site I randomly found by spinning wibby.me, a search engine you can click to end up on a random Web 1.0 site. At first glance, it looks like a heavily personalized early wallpaper website with various categories, but the further I look, the more apparent it becomes that everything here is CGI. The creator of the site is clearly a big fan of the video game StarCraft, as they call it the greatest RTS game ever developed. The personal touch of the author really shines through, something that is all but absent in modern web design. The website feels more abandoned and outdated than the others previously covered. Graphics here give off that same creepy and kind of eerie vibe that early computer-generated images did. The guest book is temporarily unavailable, but you may be asking, what is a guest book? A guest book was essentially the ancestor to the comment section of modern web design. It was intended to be similar to a guest book at a wedding, where you can sign your name and leave a nice message before leaving. The early web guest book functioned exactly the same, as you could see who visited the site and what they had to say about it. Oftentimes, these would end up being filled with troll messages, but sometimes would be used in a nice manner. Guest books on the internet fell out of fashion as they were slowly replaced with more modern equivalents on social media. Back to Planet 3D FX. The help section has some simple Q&A addressing how to change your wallpaper in Windows 98 and Windows XP. Briefly going through each theme, these images just give me the vibe of the Polar Express movie. Many of these photos just feel very liminal. Seaside contains only 4 images, specifically at 3 and 3:15 p.m. for some reason. How many people do you think actually had these as their desktop wallpaper? Finally, you can go and view and download individual models used in some of the images on this site. It's likely that the site was created as a showcase for someone experimenting with computer-generated imagery, and stands the test of time as it's still active to this day.
The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
This website is a personal blog of someone who is passionate about preserving video games far before retro gaming was mainstream. The site clearly has not been maintained over the years, as it is full of broken links, but the bones of the site remain. The author of the site refers to themselves as TSR, and TSR has a great message about emulation and the controversial piracy that has forever been tied to. They state that it is important to remember the history behind the games we love. It's not just about the ROM files, but the legacy of the games. TSR dreams of a world where emulation sites embrace nostalgia and history, not just piracy for piracy's sake. There's tons of information on this site, ranging from NES related books to beginner FAQs to cheat codes for hundreds of individual NES games. TSR has countless pages about cleaning cartridges, tips on retro game hunting at the time, and even console mods to allow saving your game, all containing the personal flair and tone of TSR. Whoever TSR is, it's very clear that they had a huge passion for Nintendo, and specifically the NES. It's funny to see this being referred to as vintage and retro gaming even 24 years ago. He acknowledges that these original games are getting harder and harder to find. A retail store reached out to TSR and expressed interest in their wholesale prices. TSR responded sarcastically, listing what he would sell parts of his website for, going from $50,000 per year per person for only the index.html site, all the way up to one NES World Championship cart for the entire site. My favorite section of the site is definitely the Nintendo Museum. Split into NES and Famicom sections, the online museum has extensive photo libraries of seemingly every NES or Famicom cartridge and accessory ever produced. You can dive deep into any section of this and hear TSR's personal opinion and analysis of any of these games or items. Venice Beach Volleyball. Did you know that there was a Venice Beach volleyball game made for the NES? In TSR's review, they stated this game oozes loneliness and depression, and it feels as if it was coded by people who don't really care. Complete with typos and TSR's personal writing style, this is just a fan's raw and unfiltered thoughts about a game that likely few people even know exists. TSR discusses Tetris and how it might have been ported to every single computer and game console known to man, a statement that remains true to this day. I learned from this site that Tetris was intended to be a pack-in game for the original Game Boy, similar to how Wii Sports was for the Wii. Super Mario Bros. Asian version. Plenty of NES games appeared to have been produced with an Asian version tag attached to them. TSR originally thought that these were just pirated copies, but after further investigation, it turns out they are indeed authentic Nintendo products. TSR acknowledges that it's hard to trace any information about these cartridges. Looking into this myself, it appears that at this time, piracy was very rampant in Asian countries, and bootleg Famicom clones were more widespread than the actual official devices. So it's theorized that these copies were made to appeal to these markets to buy official products. But unfortunately, we may never know for sure why or how these versions exist. The site is full of super niche NES information information, things that only a NES superfan would know. The last update to the site was on January 20th, 2000. TSR makes a brief update to say that his site is going on an indefinite hiatus of updates. They acknowledge that the site looks like it was made in 1996 and that the code is a huge mess. TSR states that he's only a few scans away from obtaining a full digital library of every NES game, one that we can safely assume nearly a quarter century later has been completed. If it's over 8 bits, it's not worth your time. Have you ever decided that becoming a gnome is your true calling? Well, I got good news for you. BecomeAGnome.com allows you to live your dream. Simply choose the gnome you want to become, or if you're indecisive like me, you can become a random gnome. And rest assured that the anti-converter can convert you back to human form. And boom, you're now a gnome. Wait, so how do I know if the conversion worked? Oh, phew, here's the anti-converter. And just like that, I'm back to myself. The guestbook on this site is full of positive testimonials. Slojo said, "Help, my new gnome fingered too small for keyboard." Michael said, "I am a happy gnome, and this makes me quite jolly. Merry Christmas." Dave said, "I'm a gnome now. I regret everything. Help, internet went out." The site is quirky and whimsical and remains a great representation of the unseriousness and fun in the early internet. And in case you didn't know, some gnomes enjoy punk rock music. Leave your suggestions for future old internet deep dives in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content.